The massive chamber fell silent as Ambassador John Carter stood in the center of the circular platform. Above him, hundreds of alien delegates watched from their elevated seats. The council chamber had seen many trials over its 10,000-year history, but never one that would change the galaxy forever. Carter adjusted his dark blue diplomatic uniform and looked up at the towering figures surrounding him. The Zephyrian Chancellor Krixtal sat directly ahead, his scaled face showing no emotion. The Chancellor's 6 arms moved in slow patterns as he spoke, each gesture carrying the weight of ancient authority. Human Ambassador John Carter. The Chancellor's voice echoed through the chamber's translation systems. You stand accused of aggressive territorial expansion, violation of protected space treaties, and disruption of galactic peace. Carter kept his voice steady despite the fear growing in his chest. He had served Earth's diplomatic corps for 20 years and had never seen proceedings this hostile. Honorable Chancellor, I request the right to present evidence regarding humanity's legal colonization claims. All human settlements have followed established protocols. Silence. Krixtal's largest arm slammed against his podium. The Council has reviewed all evidence. Your species has expanded across 47 star systems in less than 2 centuries. This aggressive behavior threatens the stability our ancestors built. From the gallery above, Captain Ryan Walsh watched the proceedings with growing alarm. As Carter's security detail, he had accompanied the ambassador to hundreds of diplomatic meetings. This felt different. The usual ceremony and respect shown to diplomatic immunity seemed absent. The alien delegates whispered among themselves in languages the translators couldn't process fast enough. Walsh's hand moved instinctively toward his sidearm before he remembered that all weapons had been confiscated before entering the chamber. Standard procedure, they had been told. He studied the exits and counted the number of Council security forces positioned around the room. Too many for a normal diplomatic session. Carter tried again to present his case. Chancellor, humanity seeks only peaceful coexistence. Our colonial expansion has avoided all systems claimed by Council member species. We have respected every boundary agreement signed since first contact. A delegate from the Theshan Collective rose from her seat. Her blue skin seemed to shimmer under the chamber's lights as she spoke. The human claims matter little. Their rapid expansion shows dangerous ambition. In our sector alone, they have established 17 colonies where none should exist. Those systems were uninhabited and unclaimed according to Council records, Carter responded quickly. Earth submitted formal colonization requests through proper channels. We received approval for every settlement. Krixtal's scaled face twisted into what might have been a smile on a human. Approvals that certain Council members now claim were obtained through deception and bribery. The accusation hit Carter like a physical blow. His government had followed every regulation, submitted every required document, and paid every fee demanded by the Council bureaucracy. The suggestion of corruption was not just false but impossible to prove in this hostile environment. Walsh felt his blood turn cold as he watched the proceedings. 3 months ago, Carter had confided his concerns about rising tensions with several Council member species. Human colonies were reporting increased harassment from alien patrol ships. Trade routes were being mysteriously disrupted. Other human diplomats had been subjected to unusual questioning and detention. Now, Walsh understood they had walked into a trap. Carter straightened his shoulders and spoke with the dignity that had made him Earth's most respected diplomat. I demand the right to contact my government and present our full legal documentation. Diplomatic immunity guarantees. Your immunity was revoked the moment you entered this chamber, Krixtal interrupted. The Council voted 3 hours ago. You have been found guilty of all charges. The words echoed through the chamber like a death sentence. Carter's face went pale as he realized the full scope of what was happening. The trial was a facade. The decision had been made before he ever took the stand. Walsh started to rise from the seat, but found himself held in place by 2 massive Zephyrian guards who had appeared silently behind him. Their grip was gentle but unmistakably firm. Around the gallery he noticed other human observers being similarly restrained. This is illegal under every galactic law, Carter's voice carried across the chamber despite his shock. You cannot. Simply declare diplomatic immunity void. Earth will learn that the Council's authority supersedes all other claims. Crystal stood from his throne-like chair. For too long, humanity has pushed boundaries and tested limits. Today, those tests end. The Chancellor reached beneath his podium and withdrew a device that Carter recognized with horror. The neural disruptor was an ancient Zephyrian execution tool, banned by most civilized species for its cruelty. Death came slowly and painfully as the device systematically shut down brain functions. Carter tried to step backward but found his feet locked in place by some invisible force. The platform beneath him had activated restraint fields. His diplomatic training had never prepared him for this moment. Any last words, human? Crystal asked with mock ceremony. Carter lifted his chin and spoke clearly enough for every translator in the chamber to pick up his words. Tell my people that I died trying to build bridges between our species. Tell them that Earth offered friendship and received murder in return. He paused and looked directly into the recording devices he knew were broadcasting this trial across the galaxy. And tell them that John Carter died free while you live as slaves to your own fear. Crystal activated the neural disruptor without ceremony. The beam struck Carter in the chest and he collapsed to the platform, his body convulsing, as the device systematically destroyed his nervous system. The process took nearly 2 minutes while the Council watched in silence. Walsh fought against his restraints as his friend and commander died in agony. He memorized every detail of the chamber, every face that watched without protest, every delegate who had voted for this atrocity. If he survived to escape this place, someone would answer for what happened here. When Carter's body finally stopped moving, Crystal addressed the chamber one final time. Let this serve as a warning to all species that challenge Council authority. Humanity's ambassador has paid the price for his species' arrogance. The broadcast ended, but the consequences were just beginning. Across the galaxy, human colonies and Earth itself would soon receive the recording of their diplomat's execution. The Galactic Council had made a statement about their power and authority. They had no idea what kind of response humanity would provide in return. The quantum communication relay hummed to life in the command center of Proxima Base. Admiral Lisa Brooks sat at her desk reviewing routine patrol reports when the priority signal arrived from the council chambers. She opened the transmission, expecting another boring diplomatic update. Instead, she watched her oldest friend die. Brooks had known John Carter since their academy days 30 years ago. They had served together on humanity's first deep space exploration missions. She had been best woman at his wedding. Now she watched him collapse under the neural disruptor's cruel energy. While alien delegates looked on without emotion, her hands shook as the recording ended. The coffee cup on her desk rattled against its saucer. Around the command center, other officers had stopped their work to stare at the screens. The silence stretched for long seconds before anyone spoke. Admiral. Lieutenant Jake Morrison's voice was barely above a whisper. Should we contact Earth Command? Brooks forced her hands to stop trembling. She had commanded fleets in 3 different conflicts, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The execution of a diplomat under the protection of diplomatic immunity was not just murder. It was a declaration of war against everything humanity believed in. Send the recording to Earth immediately, she ordered. Priority Alpha transmission. And get me General Murphy on secure channel. While her communications officer worked frantically to establish the connection, Brooks reviewed the intelligence reports that had been accumulating over the past 6 months. Human colonies reporting increased alien patrol activity. Trade ships being delayed at checkpoints that had never existed before. Diplomatic pouches being searched in violation of treaty agreements. The signs had been there. They should have seen this coming. Captain Ryan Walsh materialized on the holographic display 20 minutes later. He had somehow escaped the council chambers and reached a human trading post near the Zephyrian border. His face was bruised and his uniform torn, but his eyes burned with determination. Admiral, I need to report critical intelligence, Walsh said without preamble. The execution was planned months in advance. I accessed partial records during the confusion after Carter's death. Brooks leaned forward. Tell me everything. Walsh activated a data tablet he had managed to steal during his escape. 6 Council. Member species coordinated this operation: the Zephyrians, Deshans, Mordic Empire, Crystal Coalition, Voidwalkers, and the Silicon Confederacy. They've been sabotaging human operations across 12 sectors. The intelligence was worse than Brooks had feared. The attack on Carter was not an isolated incident, but part of a coordinated campaign to eliminate human influence in the galaxy. Trade routes had been deliberately disrupted. Other human diplomats had survived assassination attempts that were blamed on pirates or accidents. There's more, Walsh continued. They have plans to blockade Earth and force humanity into a subordinate position within the Council structure. They see our expansion as a threat to their power. Brooks felt something cold settle in her stomach. Earth's government operated under the assumption that diplomatic solutions could resolve any conflict. They believed in negotiation, compromise, and peaceful coexistence. The Council had just demonstrated that these principles meant nothing to them. General Murphy is on the line, her communications officer announced. General Alex Murphy appeared on a second holographic display. His weathered face showed the same shock that Brooks felt, but underneath she could see something else: anger, the kind of cold, calculating anger that had made Murphy the most feared strategic mind in human space. Lisa, I assume you've seen the recording, Murphy said without greeting. Yes, sir. Captain Walsh has additional intelligence that suggests this was a coordinated attack on humanity's galactic position. Murphy nodded grimly. I've been reviewing similar reports from across our territory. The pattern is clear. They've been planning this for at least a year. Brooks hesitated before asking the question that would change everything. What are your orders, General? Murphy was quiet for several seconds. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Protocol 7 is now active. We are implementing full defensive measures across all human territory. Protocol 7. Brooks had helped write the contingency plan 5 years ago, but she had never expected it to be used. It was humanity's response to a complete breakdown of diplomatic relations with the galactic community. The protocol assumed that negotiation had failed and that human survival depended on military action. Sir, implementing Protocol 7 means we stop pretending that aliens understand human values, Murphy interrupted. They murdered our diplomat. They plan to destroy our colonies. They want to treat us like children who need their guidance. Murphy's image flickered as he transferred to a more secure communication system. They're about to learn that humans don't respond to threats the way other species do. Brooks pulled up the Protocol 7 files on her personal terminal. The plan was comprehensive and ruthless. Hidden weapons platforms would activate across human space. Military units that appeared to be simple colony defense forces would reveal their true capabilities. Most importantly, the technology that humanity had been developing in secret would finally be unleashed. Admiral, the President is calling an emergency session, her communications officer announced. Earth Command wants all senior officers to stand by for new orders. President Katie Sullivan appeared on the main display 30 minutes later. Her face was pale but determined as she addressed the assembled military leadership from across human space. Behind her, Brooks could see the emergency cabinet assembled in the Situation Room. My fellow humans, the President began. Today, the Galactic Council declared war on our people by murdering Ambassador Carter. They believe that their ancient authority gives them the right to execute our citizens without trial or evidence. Sullivan paused and looked directly into the camera. They are wrong. The President continued with growing intensity. For 2 centuries, humanity has tried to find our place in galactic civilization through diplomacy and compromise. We have followed their rules, respected their territories, and sought peaceful coexistence. Brooks watched as other officers across human space listened to the address. On dozens of ships and bases, human military personnel were receiving the same message. That approach has failed, Sullivan declared. They see our willingness to negotiate as weakness. They interpret our respect for law as submission. They believe that because we are young as a spacefaring species, we can be bullied and controlled. The president's voice hardened. Today, humanity chooses a different path. Sullivan outlined the new policy in simple terms. All human territories would immediately withdraw from Council jurisdiction. Human ships would no longer recognize alien authority outside their own space. Most importantly, any alien forces that threatened human colonies or citizens would be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. Brooks felt her heart racing as she realized the full implications. Humanity was not just leaving the galactic community, they were preparing to fight for their independence. General Murphy will coordinate our military response, the president continued. Admiral Brooks will command our fleet operations. The council wanted to make an example of Ambassador Carter. Sullivan's final words would be remembered throughout human space for generations. Now we will make an example of them. Colonel Steve Parker crouched behind the crystalline formations on Zephyrian mining platform Delta 7. His black tactical suit made him nearly invisible against the asteroid's dark surface. Through his helmet display, he watched the alien. Guards patrol their routine patterns just as they had for the past 3 days. The guards had no idea that death was coming for them. Parker's team had been preparing for this mission since Protocol 7 activated 48 hours ago. Task Force Phoenix specialized in operations that other military units could not handle. While Admiral Brooks commanded the fleet battles that were already raging across 3 sectors, Parker's job was more personal. The Council had murdered a human diplomat. Now humans would hunt down everyone responsible. Phoenix leader, this is Phoenix 2, Lieutenant Kelly Adams whispered through the team communication system. Target building is clear, no additional security detected. Parker smiled grimly inside his helmet. Zephyrians had built this facility to extract rare minerals from the asteroid belt. They considered it completely secure because it was deep. Inside their territory, protected by 3 different fleet patrol zones, they had not planned for humans who could appear anywhere without warning. Phoenix 3, report, Parker commanded. Sergeant Tony Wells responded from his position near the main power generator. Charges set and ready. We can cut their power. And life support on your command? The facility held more than just mining equipment. According to intelligence gathered by Captain Walsh before his escape, it also served as a communication hub for coordinating attacks on human colonies. The base commander, General Trixnell, had personally signed the orders that led to Ambassador Carter's execution. Tonight, the general would answer for that decision. Parker activated his suit's active camouflage and moved toward the main entrance. The technology was something the Council believed humans did not possess. They were wrong about many things. The human military had spent decades reverse engineering alien technology while pretending to be simple and primitive. Every piece of equipment captured or traded had been studied and improved. What took other species centuries to develop, human engineers had mastered in years. Parker's suit bent light around his body, making him effectively invisible to both alien eyes and their sensors. He walked past 2 Zephyrian guards who never noticed his presence. The facility's security systems registered nothing as he entered the main complex. Inside, the base hummed with activity. Alien technicians monitored mining operations while military personnel coordinated fleet movements across Zephyrian space. Parker studied the layout through his helmet's scanning systems and located his primary target. General Trixnell sat in the command center, his scaled hands moving across holographic displays as he directed patrol routes near human colonies. The general was planning another attack, Parker realized. More human civilians would die if this facility continued operating. Phoenix team, we have additional targets, Parker reported quietly. Intel packages suggest ongoing operations against our colonies. Understood, Phoenix leader, Adams responded. Orders. Parker considered the rules of engagement that had governed human military operations for 2 centuries. Clean kills minimal. Collateral damage, respect for non-combatants. Those rules had been written for conflicts with other humans who understood concepts like mercy and restraint. The Council had shown no mercy to Ambassador Carter. They had tortured him to death while broadcasting his execution across the galaxy. They planned to murder more human diplomats and civilians. New rules, Parker decided. No survivors among military personnel. Civilian miners get one chance to evacuate. The change in policy felt strange after years of following strict engagement protocols. But the Council had started a different kind of war. They wanted to fight dirty, to ignore the rules that civilized species followed. Humans could play that game better than anyone. Parker moved through the facility like a ghost. His weapon was specially designed for operations in space environments. It fired nearly silent projectiles that could punch through alien armor while leaving no trace evidence. Each shot was precisely aimed and instantly fatal. The first Zephyrian guard died without knowing he was under attack. The second barely had time to turn toward the sound before Parker's next shot ended his life. The colonel moved systematically through the corridors, eliminating security personnel who might interfere with the main mission. Phoenix 2 begins civilian evacuation, he ordered as he approached the command center. Adams activated the facility's emergency broadcast system. Her voice echoed through the mining sections in perfect Zephyrian language. All civilian personnel evacuate immediately. This facility is under attack by human forces. You have 5 minutes to reach the escape pods. The announcement caused immediate panic among the miners, but also saved their lives. Unlike the Council, humans distinguished between soldiers and civilians. Workers who were not part of the military command structure would live to tell others what happened here. Parker reached the command center, just as General Trixnell realized his base was under attack. The general reached for his personal weapon, but Parker was faster. The shot took Trixnell in the center of his chest, and the alien collapsed across his command console. Phoenix 3, cut the power, Parker ordered. Wells triggered the charges he had placed on the main generator. The facility's lights went out, replaced by the red glow of emergency systems. In the darkness, Parker and his team moved like predators. Through their natural environment, the remaining military personnel tried to organize a defense, but they were fighting an enemy they could not see using tactics they did not understand. Human soldiers appeared from impossible directions, struck with deadly precision, and vanished before return fire could be directed. Within 20 minutes, every Zephyrian military officer in the facility was dead. Parker stood in the ruined command center and accessed the facility's computer systems. The intelligence was even worse than expected. The Council had prepared detailed plans for attacking Earth itself. They intended to destroy humanity's homeworld once the outer colonies were eliminated. Phoenix Leader, this is Control. Admiral Brooks' voice came through his communication system. Status report, mission accomplished, Parker reported. Target eliminated along with his entire staff. We've retrieved intelligence about planned attacks on Earth. There was a pause before Brooks responded. Copy that, Phoenix Leader. Prepare for immediate extraction. We have new targets based on your intelligence. Parker looked around the darkened facility one more time. In 3 hours, when the next Zephyrian patrol arrived, they would find their mining platform dark and lifeless. The miners who escaped would spread word about what humans could do when they chose to fight without rules. Understood, Control. Phoenix team is ready for next assignment. As his team prepared for extraction, Parker thought about Ambassador Carter and the brutal way he had died. The Council believed they had sent a message about their power and authority. They were about to learn that humans could send messages too. The war was just beginning, and humanity intended to write its conclusion in the blood of those who had chosen to make humans their enemies. The galaxy would learn that there were fates worse than death, and humans knew how to deliver them all. President Katie Sullivan stood before the galactic communication array that would broadcast her message to every inhabited world in known space. Behind her, the emergency cabinet watched nervously as she prepared to address not just humanity, but every alien species that had witnessed Ambassador Carter's execution. The past week had seen human forces strike at targets across 12 different star systems. Council fleets were retreating from sectors they had controlled for thousands of years. Alien leaders who had never known defeat were beginning to understand that they had awakened something terrible. Sullivan activated the broadcast system. Her image would appear on screens throughout the galaxy, reaching billions of beings who had grown comfortable thinking humans were just another primitive species, seeking acceptance in galactic civilization. "My name is Katie Sullivan, President of the United Earth Government," she began, looking directly into the camera. 7 days ago, your Galactic Council murdered our ambassador John Carter in violation of every law that governs civilized behavior between species. The President paused to let the translation systems catch up. Her words would be heard in thousands of languages across hundreds of worlds. "Some of you may believe this conflict is about territory or resources," Sullivan continued. "You are wrong. This war is about the fundamental question of whether ancient authority gives anyone the right to murder innocents without consequence." Admiral Brooks watched the broadcast from the bridge of the UES Titan, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. The massive vessel dwarfed anything in the galactic fleet, built in secret shipyards hidden throughout the asteroid belts of human space. Around her, the crew prepared for the assault on the Council's capital world. The Titan was not alone. 47 other ships of similar size had emerged from concealment across the galaxy. For decades, humanity had pretended to build simple colony ships and mining vessels while secretly constructing a fleet that could challenge any force in known space. For 2 centuries, humanity has sought peaceful coexistence with your species. Sullivan's voice continued over the ship's communication system. "We have followed your laws, respected your territories, and honored your treaties. In return, you have sabotaged our trade, assassinated our citizens, and planned the destruction of our worlds." Dr. Helen Davis stood in her laboratory deep beneath Earth's surface, watching the president's speech while making final preparations for the revelation that would shock the galaxy. Around her, displays showed technical specifications for weapons and ships that officially did not exist. Davis had spent 30 years leading humanity's most secret research programs. Every piece of alien technology that humanity had encountered had been studied, reverse-engineered, and improved upon. What the Council saw as primitive human engineering was actually carefully hidden technological superiority. "Today, I am sharing with the galaxy the true extent of human capabilities," Sullivan announced. "For decades, we have concealed our technological advancement to avoid provoking conflicts with species who might feel threatened by our rapid development." Davis activated the transmission systems that would broadcast detailed schematics of human technology to every scientific institution in the galaxy. Weapons that manipulated gravity itself, ships that could phase through solid matter, armor that adapted to any environment. The revelation would shatter every assumption about human technological capabilities. On the bridge of the Titan, Admiral Brooks received confirmation that all human fleets were in position for the final assault. The Council's capital world of Nexus Prime lay ahead, protected by orbital defenses built by 12 different species over thousands of years. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different Council member species," her communications officer reported. Brooks studied the tactical display showing Council fleets throughout the galaxy. Many were retreating toward their homeworlds. Others had simply stopped fighting and were broadcasting requests for negotiation. "Denied," Brooks replied without hesitation. "Forward all surrender requests to Earth Command. Our orders are to proceed with the assault." President Sullivan's broadcast reached its climax as she outlined humanity's terms for ending the conflict. "The Galactic Council will be dissolved. Every being responsible for Ambassador Carter's murder will face trial under human legal standards. Any species that participated in the conspiracy against humanity will submit to reconstruction under human oversight." The terms were harsh but not impossible. Unlike the Council's authoritarian rule, human governance emphasized individual rights and representative democracy. Species that had lived under Council oppression for millennia might actually benefit from human guidance. "Those who choose to resist will face the full extent of human military capability," Sullivan concluded. "We did not start this war, but We will finish it. The broadcast ended, leaving the galaxy to absorb the implications of what they had heard. On countless worlds, alien leaders who had considered humans to be weak and primitive began to understand the magnitude of their miscalculation. Admiral Brooks ordered the Titan forward toward Nexus Prime's orbital defenses. The massive station that surrounded the Council's capital world represented 10,000 years of technological advancement by the galaxy's oldest civilizations. Its shields could withstand the combined firepower of entire fleets. The human assault began with weapons that the Council's sensors could not even detect. Gravity manipulators reached through the station's shields and began tearing apart its structural supports from within. Energy weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously bypassed every defensive system the aliens had built. Shields are collapsing across all sections, the tactical officer reported with amazement. In his voice, their defensive grid is failing faster than our projections estimated. Brooks watched as humanity's true technological superiority became obvious. The aliens had built their defenses to stop conventional weapons and energy attacks. They had never imagined weapons that could reach through space itself to destroy targets from impossible directions. Begin landing operations, Brooks ordered. Secure the Council chambers and prepare for ground assault. Colonel Parker led the first wave of human troops onto the station's surface. His soldiers wore power armor that made them nearly invincible against alien weapons while allowing them to move through any environment. The armor adapted automatically to energy attacks, kinetic weapons, and even biological warfare. The Council's security forces had never faced an enemy like this. Human soldiers appeared to walk through walls, shrugged off direct hits from their most powerful weapons, and struck back with devastating efficiency. Phoenix team to control, Parker reported as his forces reached the Council chambers. We have secured the primary target area. Ready to begin arrest operations. The building that had served as the seat of galactic government for 10 millennia fell to human forces in less than 6 hours. Alien delegates who had ruled hundreds of species with absolute authority found themselves prisoners of the very species they had tried to eliminate. Chancellor Crystal was captured alive in his private chambers, along with the other council members who had voted for Carter's execution. They would face human justice for their crimes. Experiencing the fair trial they had denied to Earth's ambassador. As human forces secured the station, reports arrived from across the galaxy. Council fleets were surrendering in every sector. The war that was supposed to crush human expansion had instead ended the Council's 10,000-year reign over galactic civilization. The age of human leadership had begun. 3 months after the fall of the Galactic Council, Chancellor Crystal sat in a human detention facility awaiting his trial. The cell was clean and comfortable, with proper lighting and temperature control. He received regular meals and medical care. The contrast with Council detention methods was not lost on him. Through the transparent wall, he could see other former Council members in similar cells. Each would face individual trials based on their specific involvement in Ambassador Carter's execution and the conspiracy against humanity. Unlike the show trial that had condemned Carter, these proceedings would follow human legal standards. Judge Patricia Coleman presided over the War Crimes Tribunal that would determine Crystal's fate. The human legal system seemed strange to alien observers who were accustomed to Council justice where guilt was decided by political necessity rather than evidence. This court will examine the evidence against former Chancellor Crystal regarding the murder of Ambassador John Carter and conspiracy to commit genocide against human colonies. Judge Coleman announced as the trial began. The proceedings were broadcast across the galaxy, allowing billions of beings to witness human justice in action. Unlike the Council's closed deliberations, human courts operated with complete transparency. Every piece of evidence would be examined publicly. Every witness would testify under oath. Captain Ryan Walsh took the stand as the prosecution's primary witness. He had recovered from his injuries sustained during his escape from the Council chambers and now served as Admiral Brooks' chief intelligence officer. Please describe what you observed during Ambassador Carter's trial, the prosecutor requested. Walsh spoke clearly into the court's recording systems. The trial was predetermined. Chancellor Crickstall told the defendant that his diplomatic immunity had been revoked and that the council had already voted to find him guilty. No evidence was presented. No defense was allowed. The prosecution then presented the intelligence that Walsh had gathered during his escape. Communication records showed that 6 council member species had coordinated the attack on Carter months in advance. Trade route sabotage, assassination attempts on other human diplomats, and plans to blockade Earth were all documented in captured council files. Crickstall's defense attorney, appointed by the human court system, argued that the Chancellor had acted according to established council procedures. The Galactic Council had operated as the supreme authority in galactic affairs for 10,000 years. Previous species that challenged council authority had been dealt with similarly. That argument might have merit, Judge Coleman responded, if diplomatic immunity had not been specifically guaranteed under treaties that the council itself had created. The defendant violated laws that his own government had written. The trial continued for 2 weeks as evidence mounted against the former chancellor. Unlike human defendants who might claim ignorance or coercion, Crickstall had personally activated the neural disruptor that killed Carter. He had broadcast the execution across the galaxy as a warning to humanity. President Sullivan watched the trial proceedings from her office while reviewing reports on the new galactic order that humanity was establishing. The Terran Accords had replaced the Council's authoritarian system with a federation based on representative democracy and individual rights. Species that had participated in the conspiracy against humanity faced reconstruction under human oversight. Their military forces were disbanded and their governments reorganized according to human democratic principles. The process was difficult but necessary to prevent future conflicts. Species that had remained neutral or aided humanity received favorable trade agreements and protection under the Terran Federation. Many alien worlds discovered that human leadership provided opportunities and freedoms they had never experienced under Council rule. Admiral Brooks had been appointed as the first director of galactic security, tasked with maintaining peace under the new order. Her headquarters occupied the former council chambers, now renamed the Terran Federation Complex. The symbolic change was important. Where the council had ruled through fear and ancient authority, the Federation governed through law and consent. Of the governed. Dr. Davis met with representatives from dozens of alien species, who sought to understand human technology and psychology. The revelation of humanity's hidden technological capabilities had shattered many assumptions about human development. Your species adapted and improved our technology faster than we thought possible, a Veshan scientist observed during one of their meetings. How did you accomplish what took us centuries to develop? Davis smiled at the question she had heard dozens of times. Humans learn quickly because we have to. We're young as a spacefaring species, so we cannot afford to move slowly. When survival depends on rapid adaptation, you find ways to accelerate development. The real answer was more complex. Human creativity and problem-solving abilities had allowed them to see solutions that other species missed. Where aliens followed established procedures and traditional methods, humans experimented with new approaches and unconventional solutions. Judge Coleman delivered the verdict in Crickstall's trial on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks after testimony concluded. The former chancellor stood as she read the court's decision. The evidence shows beyond reasonable doubt that defendant Crickstall deliberately murdered Ambassador John Carter in violation of diplomatic immunity and international law. The court finds the defendant guilty of war crimes, murder, and conspiracy to commit genocide. The sentence was life imprisonment rather than execution. Despite the brutality of Carter's death, human justice emphasized rehabilitation over revenge. Crickstall would spend his remaining years in detention, but he would be treated humanely according to human standards. Other council members received similar sentences, based on their individual involvement in the conspiracy. Some faced shorter terms for lesser roles, while others joined Crickstall in permanent detention for their direct participation in planning Carter's execution. The trials concluded 6 months after the war's end. The galaxy had watched human justice in action and found it both fair and effective. Many alien species began adopting human legal principles in their own governments. Ambassador Linda Gray delivered the dedication speech at the John Carter Memorial on the first anniversary of his death. The memorial occupied the center of the former council chambers, ensuring that Carter's sacrifice would never be forgotten. John Carter died believing that differences between species could be resolved through understanding and mutual respect. Gray told the assembled crowd of human and alien dignitaries. His death taught us that some beings only understand strength, but his life showed us the importance of justice and fairness in how we use that strength. The memorial bore Carter's final words along with a simple inscription: "Died free while his killers lived as slaves to fear." President Sullivan stood among the crowd, thinking about how much had changed since Carter's execution. The galaxy was more peaceful under human leadership than it had been under council rule. Democratic governments were spreading to worlds that had known only authoritarian control for millennia. The war had ended with humanity's victory, but the real victory was the peace that followed. Humans had proven that they could fight as ruthlessly as any species when threatened, but they had also demonstrated that they preferred to build rather than destroy. As the ceremony concluded, Sullivan reflected on the lesson that the galaxy had learned. Humans fought differently than other species, not for territory or resources, but for principles. When those principles were violated, humanity's response was swift and absolute. The Council had tried to make an example of John Carter. Instead, they had created an example of what happened when humanity was pushed too far. The galaxy would remember that lesson for generations to come.